So dual agency, guys. Dual agencies is one of the biggest dangers that we have. There is a pros and cons. The big pro is that we as listing agent can fetch double the amount that we usually do. It's a great opportunity for us. So it is. It's nice to have that. Now, my question to you. I asked this last time. My question to you: can you be a selling agent and have a dual agency? Can you start as a selling agent and be a dual agency? Yes or no? Yes. Wanda say yes. Ahida say no. Elsa yes. Well, Pablo Rossi no. Yes. Sorry. Okay. So the right answer is either. No, you cannot. If you are a selling agent originally, there is no way in the world you can be double agent. You cannot be. You can have dual agency because you got to be a listing agent first. Depends on the agency. Patty, do you want to tell us why it depends on the agency? That was tricky. Okay. Okay. So why that was tricky? Why depending on the agency, Patty? Please tell us. Some agencies don't accept that. What this got to do with anything? Huh? What this got to do with anything? It's either or. Okay. So basically, we'll get to the agency, the dual agency on the double ending. But basically, if you are a selling agent, you cannot be also a dual agency if you start as a selling agent. On the other end, if you are a listing agent, yes, you can be a listing agent and you can be a selling agent. That's the dual agency. So you have to have the listing first, okay? You didn't get the listing. Very good, Leo. So, and it's another reason why we all the time tell you, go ahead and get listing, get listings. That's the most important task that you guys can do in your professional life. Go get listings. Okay, so now, before I go into the details of this, I want to say something about that. Many offices in California, because California law is very strict, many offices over here do not allow an agent to have a dual agency. The agent, okay, not the office, the agent. Some offices don't even do the office, okay? But many offices do not let an agent, a listing agent, also represent the buyer. In that event, they tell the agent that they have to refer the client, the buyer, to either another agent in the office or to the office manager. We at Peak, we believe that we like to have our agents profit maximizer. We want you guys to walk away with the most amount of money available, and if you did your job and you did your job great, we want you to get the listing and find the buyer and enjoy the fruits of your hard work. However, when you are double ending a deal, okay, it is crucial that you refer this deal to elect from the beginning. Before you even started the negotiation, you let your manager knows about the situation, that there is a possibility that you might be double ending, okay? The reason is, I'm going to tell you in a minute, but I want the managers to be involved. It's either the manager or or myself or your TC. Somebody needs to be involved and watch you guys, because it's a problem, and I'll get to that, okay? So we established that. Everybody on this call knows that when they have an opportunity, and I call it an opportunity on purpose, because even though it's a big subject, I want you guys to go and pursue it. So even though when you have this opportunity, I want your manager to get involved from from before it even started to be anything, from the first offer that you are about to write. Okay? Now, why dual agency is so important? It's important because of two words, and it's called fiduciary duty. This is the listing side duty. This is the fiduciary duty that we have to the seller. So what is the fiduciary duty? A fiduciary duty is the duty of utmost care, integrity, honesty, and loyalty. This is almost as good as attorney or a trustor for a trust. Okay, so what does it mean, fiduciary duty? For those of us who just joined us recently to the real estate and they're not that much familiar, I want you to know that because you're always going to hear that. The fiduciary duty, fiduciary duty, fiduciary duty. Everybody, I'm going to tell you that. Your office manager is going to tell you that. Everybody is going to tell you that. Okay? So I want you to be familiar with what does it mean, fiduciary duty. So as I say, is the highest duties known to the law in California and across the United States. The highest. Okay? So what does it mean? As a fiduciary duty to a real estate broker, you have to be lawfully... What's the problem? Well, the microphone is too close? Okay, thank you. Now it's much better. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me better now, everybody? Okay, good. So, you owe certain duties to your principal, okay? Your principal in this case is the seller right now, okay? You took the listing, you owe the fiduciary duty, and you have to be kind of the faithful servant. When I say the faithful servant, I don't mean that you need to wash the floors or to take the garbage out, okay? I mean that whatever the items in the law that you have to abide. So let's go into the details of what's your responsibility. Loyalty. This is the most important. A duty of a loyalty is the most fundamental fiduciary duty owed by the agent to its principal. Loyalty, guys, okay? It means that you have to act all the time for the best interest of your principal, for the best interest of your principal. Now, I'm going to start talking about the dual agency. You will understand how difficult it is to keep the loyalty when you're holding both sides. So this is the tricky about that, okay? So you in loyalty, you have to put your own interest after the seller. Okay, after the principal, when you have the listing, after your principal. For example, okay, if you're gonna make more money by double ending and the seller will get less, that's you breaking your fiduciary duty. Okay, and we have to remember that. We have to remember that because sometimes we see a big pot of money. We need that money. It's gonna make us. It's going to get us to the month, to the year, to whatever it is, but it doesn't mean that the seller is the best seller's interest. So we have to watch out from that, the loyalty factor. Let's move on. Confidentiality, okay? That's another very big factor that talks about the fiduciary duty when you have double ending, okay? You have to be confidential with your seller, with your principal, right? So you have to keep the principal secret. You cannot disclose them. You cannot, because the seller, the principal might provide you some information that you cannot share. You dying to share it, and you might have that information. You can use it with the other side, but you cannot. You cannot have this information that the seller provided you. What is this information? For example, you're negotiating the price and the seller tells you, listen, negotiate 500, but I'm telling you, I'm going to walk away also for 490 because I need this done. I need this done. So can you share this information with the other side? Of course not. Of course not, because this is your part of fiduciary duty. Disclosures, okay? We have to disclose all relevant material, okay, that you know, okay? You got to disclose that. For example, if the buyer's agent tells you that the buyer is um, um, dying to buy this property because the wife is due any day in the next 2 months, and she wants to give birth in this house. Is that a material fact? Is that something that you need to disclose to your seller? Definitely you'd have to, okay? You have to disclose, and this is when you're representing only the seller right now, okay? Now think about that later on, of everything that I just say, and on how that's going to imply when you're holding both sides. See about the difficulties about that. Obedience. This is a good one. Sometimes I have to, I'm going to exaggeration. Basically, you have to obey everything, all the lawful things, all the lawful instructions that the principal gave you. Okay? You have to obey the principal instructions. Now, you're not going to obey something which is unlawful. Okay? For example, discrimination. If the seller tells you, listen, these people, these buyers from some ethical group, I'm not going to accept them, so send them a rejection, please. You cannot do that, because that's discrimination, and that's against the 1965 Discrimination Act. Okay? So, you cannot do that. However, let's exaggerate, for example. Let's say the seller tells you, you know what? You want to do open houses in the summer? Not a problem. You have to come with the swimsuit, and you have to be outside, put a pool outside, and with a swimsuit, and do the open house. Is that a lawful request by the seller? I'm exaggerating. Is that a lawful request? Do you have to obey this? Daddy say no. Okay? Who else says no? Wanda says no. Okay, Elsa says no. Now let me ask you guys. Thank you for the answers, guys. When we say unlawful, what's unlawful about doing an open house with a swimsuit outside? Please tell me. What's unlawful by doing an open house with a swimsuit outside? Nothing. Exactly. So there is nothing unlawful about that. You can say, Mr. Seller, you a little bit got carried away, I'm not going to do it. So if that's the part of the requirements of the listing, okay, you have to do it or resign. This is a lawful request, demand from the seller. So the seller cannot ask you to do something illegal, but they can ask you to do something which is completely legal, and you have to obey. So I exaggerated that a little bit, but remember, the seller is God. Seller is God. Okay? So let's move on. Reasonable care and diligence. Okay? So everything that you do, you have to pursue with reasonable care about the principal affair. Okay? Everything that you do. Okay? You have to do it. It's like a doctor or a lawyer. We owe it the same thing. We have to carry the seller's affairs as the best to our abilities. Okay? Accounting. Okay? You are obligated basically for all the monies and everything that he trusted with you. Sometimes it's in the broker trust account, so we are obligated. We at PEAK, we are trying to stay away from holding sellers or buyers money in our trust account, but if we do, this is very, very high obligation. Now, so since we finished the listing side, let's talk about the selling side. Well, let's say that what happened when we only representing the buyer. Huge difference. Huge difference. First, we have to exercise reasonable skill and care, okay, to the best of our ability. Second, we have to be honest and fair dealing and good faith, and we have a duty to disclose all material facts. That's it. There is not about loyalty, there's not about, what else we say, confidentiality, this obedience for sure, it's not there. So, actually whatever it says here, it's a lot of stuff, right? But we don't have the fiduciary duty. Remember, guys, and I want you to remember that, because everybody will come to you and says, oh, you owe a fiduciary duty to the buyer. No, we're not. Okay? We're not. We owe a fiduciary duty to the seller. but we owe the buyer an honest and fair dealing and good faith. This is what we owe to the buyer. Now, okay? Now this is where it starts tricky. Everybody with me? Are you following me? I'm good there? Okay, beautiful. So let's say we have the agent or we have the broker representing both sellers and buyer. What do we have here? We have a fiduciary duty, which I just said before, of utmost care, integrity, honesty, and loyalty in the dealing with both sides, guys. With both sides. So this is huge, okay? This is huge because it doesn't matter if the agent, it matters also with the broker, okay? And I'll get to that in a minute. So remember, when we representing both sides, and we want you to represent both sides, you want to represent both sides, okay? It's double the money in your pocket. You owe fiduciary duty to both sellers and buyer, okay? Now, before you become an agent, I'm talking right now an agent, that about to take the selling side when you have a listing, ask yourself, can you perform these duties when you're representing both sides? Can you perform loyalty, confidentiality, disclosures, obedience, reasonable care and on diligence, and accounting? The same thing we just said for the seller, can you do for the buyer? Becomes tricky. It becomes, can you do it for the buyer? Okay? So everything that you do, it is there. And why I say that? Because this guy is watching you. Who is this guy? Who is this guy? It's the law, right? Okay, so that's the guy, is the law. So let's don't stand in front of this guy. So let's see the scenarios. We have two agents, but both agents in our under Century 21 Pigs, they represent both parties. Okay? Now, think about that. It's interesting. It can be in the office, it can be with multiple offices. For example, Bill from Upland represents the seller, right? And Esty from Woodland Hills represents the buyer. Is that we have a dual agency here? Yes or no? Yes, of course, Pablo. Very good. We have a dual agency because the broker represents both sides. So let's talk about that, okay? Let's talk about that. Okay, so when we have this scenario, okay, suddenly it doesn't matter only the broker. Both agents automatically, they owe fiduciary duty for both sides. Both agents. And why both agents? Do you know why both agents? Anybody knows why? Suddenly, the listing agent owes fiduciary duty to the buyer, but he got nothing to do with the buyer. Why is that? Anybody can tell me? Anybody can tell me? They are under the same brokerage. That's very good, Patty. But okay, but what the selling agent got to do with the listing agent and vice versa? Okay, same office. I'll explain you. Okay, the agents, according to the law, are representing the broker. The agents, as much as it sounds a little bit ridiculous, do not have the charter to conduct business for themselves. Okay? They conduct business for the broker. It's interesting. They conduct business for the broker. So if you conduct business for the broker, you're representing the broker in this dealing. So if you're representing, Mr. Agent, representing the broker, you are just kind of a messenger in that transaction. It's the broker that is responsible for anything. So if that's the case, you as agent, selling agent, and agent, listing agent, just kind of representing the brokers and carried away the brokers' duties. So that's why both agents in this scenario owe both sides fiduciary duty. Okay? So think about, I'll give you a scenario, okay? And that happens a lot. We have a lot of technical issues here. Okay, so for example, we have an office. In the office, we have a listing, and then we have a buyer that comes with one of the other agents. So the broker or the office managers start convincing and encouraging the broker. Somebody raised their hand? No. So encouraging the agent to convince the seller to accept an offer that it's inside the office, and it's not necessarily the best offer for the seller. Okay, that's an issue. That's a very big issue. Okay, because regardless, if we also want to have the deal in the office, we always have to keep the seller's interest. And I had a conversation on that regard with one of the agents that on this call today, and I said, okay, we would like to have that transaction in the office. We would like to have that, but we have to remember, whatever we do, our is for it's the seller's benefit. After we establish that we want to get for the seller the most we can do, the most we can, then we will work about anything else. Okay? Now, the fact that we know what's going on, is that an advantage? Yes, it is an advantage. Nobody says that we cannot share some information with a buyer that comes from the office. We can. Of course, we have to get that permission from the seller. But while pushing another buyer from the office or from the brokerage and serving our seller and getting the seller the most they can get from that transaction, we still okay. Okay, we still okay, and that's the reason we have to have the office manager involved, or myself involved. Okay, now, so let's say we are trying to put together a deal in the office. Now, let's assume that the two agents are in the same office and they are very good friends. Okay, that's a problem, because the nature of ours is to share information. We are keeping good relationship. We have, in general, we have a very good relationship between the offices, between the agents. So this is something I say, listen guys, in a transaction like that we keep in the office, and again, there is a lot of advantages to keep everything in the office. I mean, the wet dream is to buyer and seller in the office, our escrow, our lending. I mean, everything is here, that we really, forget about the money, that everything stays in the company. It really keeps the control of this transaction, and control is something so important, and I talk a lot about it. I talk about it a lot. Okay, so we have to put a Chinese wall, kind of a fictitious Chinese wall between, imaginary Chinese wall between the buyer agents and the seller agent. Okay, we got it. They cannot share information, so we don't want a drifting on information goes from one side to another. Even though it's our intention, it's not in our intention, and it's part of our nature to share information. Okay, so that was in the thing. Now, the other thing which is common, which, guys, this is the beauty about everybody being a listing agent, is the same agent representing both parties. But that's becomes a little bit tricky. Okay, so this is most common, and I said that before. Okay, and it's called double-ending the deal. Okay, double-ending the deal. It's not dual agency. It's just when you say the agent double-ended the deal, that's when he held both sides. Okay, now, part of the reason that many offices in California don't let this happen is because it's a very difficult and sometimes very impossible to a single agent to represent both sides in a negotiation. Okay, because he doesn't exercise, he or she do not exercise the full capacity of their negotiation ability, because they know. Okay, so they become kind of a messenger. Okay, it becomes some kind of a messenger. They're not negotiating that. Very experienced agents are able. It's fantastic. I've seen them. They are able to be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I don't know how many of you know what is Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde, but they're able to transform their personality completely from when representing the seller and then representing the buyer. So it's fantastic to see them working, but it's very, very rare. So because of that problem, many states, as I mentioned before, do not allow dual agency, do not allow double ending, but still it's illegal in California. We have a case right now that was in the Supreme Court, went back to the Superior Court. We will see what's going to come from that, okay? So if we have a situation like that, when the agent is double ending, the agent under no circumstances should not, without permission of the seller, disclose anything to the other side. Now, it's not, he cannot disclose the seller's facts. He cannot disclose the buyer facts, okay? Contrary that I said before, remember, when you're representing the seller and the selling agent told you something about the buyers, you have to rush to the seller and tell her that because it's affecting their thought process. Okay, in this situation, if you hear that, you cannot disclose that to the seller. You cannot. It's a problem. Okay, it's a problem. So, as I mentioned before, when double ending, the agent becomes less aggressive, and some agents just don't do it. I mean, we had few incidents here that I didn't allow the agents to be double ending. Okay, so there was a case, okay, in the California court, and I want you to read this, what it says, okay, and that's called about the dual agency. A careless misstatement by an agent may constitute constructive fraud even there is no fraudulent intent. That's the appeal court in the state of California about 2 years ago on a case that came to them. And an agent from Coldwell Banker represented the seller, and another agent from Coldwell Banker in completely different city represented the buyer. There was a problem. There was a lawsuit after that for misrepresentation. I can tell you that I know the case very well. The listing agent didn't know about that. I mean, they knew, but it was not something that they pay attention, okay? The Court of Appeal clearly says that a careless misrepresentation in a dual agency may constitute constructive fraud. Think about that, constructive fraud for an agent in a dual agency that they didn't know what's going on. Okay? So that's a problem. Okay? So always remember that. Always remember that. So do's and don't do. Okay? Let's go quickly. Never share information with sellers and buyer on the knowledge that you have with the other sides. Okay? Not even before the RFPA side. So I'm talking about the negotiation process. Never, never, never share information until the deal is recorded. Okay? Always consult with the manager or your broker before writing the offer. Okay? Sit down with them and run the scenarios. What if, what that, what so, and so on and so on. Never say, when you double ending, I know that the buyer or the seller will do so and so. Okay? Even if you know that they will do it, always say, let me check with the other side and I'll get back to you. Even if you know, you do not say that. Okay? Never, 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 never. And also, and this is about something that was from that court case that I just mentioned before, checked all the MLS data, okay, and all the advertising material about square footage, about feature of the house, and so on, because and the double agents or the double agency, we carry double and or more and above responsibilities and than anybody else. Okay, so when you say, for example, you put a listing as a listing agent and you put buyer to verify square footage, and you suddenly becomes the buyer's agent. Okay, You cannot keep that buyer to verify. You remember, you are the buyer, okay? So you have to do these things right now. Suddenly you carry on yourself. But in many cases, the reward is high, so you want to carry that. Choose Fidelity, National, CRES, Home Warranty, and the idea is about the CRES. The CRES, when you double ending, or the office double ending, the CRES give us additional money on the E&O, so it goes against our on deductible. So the deductible is going to be less. I think they're chipping in for that about $5,000 more. Okay, because the chances in a double ending of getting a lawsuit are higher than a regular transaction. Okay. And again, when you have the disclosures, sit down with the disclosures with your manager. Make sure that all disclosures are accurate prior to closing. I don't want to see mistakes on disclosures. I don't want to see in double ending a deal that one of the boxes is not checked, and if it's a yes checked, I want to see a full explanation. This is your job, guys, because all these cases ending up in court. We don't want to do that, okay? Another one is when the listing is off the market and you obtain an offer. This is some new regulation that came in about a few months ago. Let's say you took a listing and it's off the market and you advertise it as a pocket listing on social media and network. The BRE is carefully looking into this and saying, okay, you have to make sure that the seller understands that the offer that you got is the best, and they cannot get more than that, okay? Because in these cases, the DRE wants you to put it on the market. So unless you have specific instructions, never put it on the market or do these things. Pay attention when you bring an offer when the property is off the market. Okay, remember, this guy is watching you, okay? Thank you, everybody. Go list something, okay? Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.